Possible job of a middle-class man in the Industrial Revolution? During the Industrial Revolution, middle-class men could have jobs such as factory manager or bank manager. They were not factory owners, but rather individuals who managed the workers on a daily basis. They were typically educated and held positions of authority. Middle-class men often lived outside the city in a nicer environment. The Factory Acts aided what group of British society? The Factory Acts in Great Britain were a set of laws starting in the 1830s that aimed to help children. The acts clarified how children should be treated in factories, including specifying the age a child should be to work in a factory or mine, as well as the number of hours they could work based on their age. The Factory Acts were created because of the sense that while Britain was making good money, it was doing so on the backs of poor people, and that a revolt by poor people may occur if this continued. Additionally, an investigation of the factories revealed the level of brutality and death for children. The initial focus was on the most vulnerable individuals in society, children, and then later women and then men. According to a romantic, what would be a good way for a great military leader to die? According to the source material, a romantic would consider a good death for a great military leader to be one that involves going out in a blaze of glory. Instead of settling down and waiting for death in a rocking chair, a romantic would have the leader get back on a boat with his men and sail into the ocean to die fighting. A romantic would consider it the right kind of death if the leader fought against the government or authority and died for it. Romantics would reject the idea of a purely rational death and instead embrace an emotional one. Good daily activity for a middle-class British woman? A good daily activity for a middle-class British woman would be to stay at home and help raise the children and run the household. Additionally, they might volunteer through a religious organization or church to work in a soup kitchen or help the homeless. They may also spend time educating their daughters in the home, or hire a tutor or governess. Other hallmarks of middle-class status for women in Britain include maintaining a clean and orderly household, ensuring their husband's trousers have a sharp crease, using a trouser stretcher if necessary, purchasing goods that signify status such as an indoor flush toilet and pear soap. Name the ruler. France after Napoleon, Austria when it became Austria-Hungary, liberator of the serfs in Russia. France after Napoleon. After Napoleon's defeat, the Bourbon monarchy was restored, and Louis XVIII became the King of France. Austria when it became Austria-Hungary. When Austria transitioned into Austria-Hungary, it shared a common ruler, Franz Joseph. Liberator of the serfs in Russia. Tsar Alexander II is known as the Liberator for his efforts to free the serfs in Russia in 1861. Radical groups assassinated him because they were upset he had not done enough. What does plebiscite, mir, zemstivios, polyglot, dual monarchy, proletariat mean in this unit? Here are the meanings of plebiscite, mir, zemstivios, polyglot, dual monarchy, and proletariat within the context of this unit, according to the sources. Plebiscite. A plebiscite is an opinion poll of the masses. Napoleon would use plebiscites by asking open-ended questions to get the public on his side, such as, "Do you support the greater strength of France?" Then, he would use the support from the plebiscite to justify his actions, such as ending elections and declaring himself emperor for life. Mir. Economic health. A mir is a village collective in Russia that organized the local economy to aid former serfs in their transition to freedom. The people leading the mirs were the landowners. Zemstivios, political health. Zemstivios were local councils in Russia that were popularly elected. Tsar Alexander II created these councils so people could write to him and tell him what their problems were. Polyglot. A polyglot refers to a mixture of cultures, nationalities, and ethnicities. Austria was a polyglot because it was a combination of Austrians, Bohemians, Moravians, Galatians, Hungarians, Croatians, Slovenians, Bosnians, Hercynians, Dalmatians, and Transylvanians. Dual monarchy. A dual monarchy is a system where two separate kingdoms are ruled by the same monarch, share a unified government and have some level of autonomy. An example of this is Austria-Hungary, which occurred because Hungary demanded self-rule or threatened rebellion. Hungary gained its own domestic government and constitution, but Austria and Hungary shared a common ruler, military, and economy. Proletariat. The proletariat refers to the working classes. Karl Marx believed that people are driven by their economic class and are either part of the bourgeoisie, middle class, or the proletariat. Marx thought history was a series of clashes between economic classes and that the last clash between the working class and middle class would be the end of old society. Napoleon's achievements, both enlightened and not enlightened. Napoleon's rule in France had both enlightened and unenlightened aspects. Enlightened achievements. Meritocracy. Napoleon implemented a system where talent and ability determined advancement. Code Napoleon. He introduced a law code that promoted equality for all citizens. Religious tolerance. Catholicism was reinstated as the main church, but not the official faith, allowing religious freedom. Equality and education. The Napoleonic Code was based on equality, and it included the right to education for everyone, including girls. Not enlightened policies and actions. Suppressed freedom of speech. Napoleon had zero room for negativity, as he shut down newspapers, arrested editors, and jailed those who questioned him. When Napoleon took over as emperor, there were 75 major newspapers in France, but when he was done, there were 13. Reinforced patriarchy. The laws of society qualified women under the umbrella of men. A woman was considered the property of her father, husband, or eldest son. The Napoleonic Code allowed a man to imprison his wife for up to 6 months. Authoritarianism. Napoleon shut down elections and used plebiscites, public polls, to maintain control. Nepotism. Napoleon appointed family members to lead conquered territories. In summary, Napoleon's rule included enlightened reforms like meritocracy, equality before the law, and religious tolerance, but it also featured authoritarian actions, limited freedom of speech, and reinforced patriarchal views. How was Romantic art different? Romantic art differed from neoclassical art in several key ways, emphasizing emotion, individualism, and nature. Key characteristics of Romantic art, according to the sources. Emotion. Romantic art prioritized high emotion and feeling. Individualism. It celebrated the individual soul and one's battle with life. Romanticism emphasized the importance of every human soul, in contrast to Metternich's conservative ideas. Nature. Romantic art displayed a lot of nature and one's individual emotion. There was devotion to nature in paintings, showing the power and potential of nature. Rejection of neoclassical art. Romanticism rejected neoclassical art. Additionally, Romantic art does not try to teach a moral lesson, it lets one be, and sees the emotion that they are. The reasons Britain industrialized first. Great Britain was the first country to industrialize due to several factors. Key reasons for Britain's early industrialization. Agricultural innovations. Britain solved its food issues quicker than other countries by doing experimental things with agriculture, such as enclosing the land and using a seed drill and different fertilizer techniques. These innovations led to more food production with fewer people, meaning that former farmers could become factory workers. Resources. Britain possessed abundant resources such as coal, iron, and tin in areas that had not been important previously. Coal was used to make heat to create better iron, which was then used to make railroad tracks and engines, as well as taller buildings and bridges. Entrepreneurial spirit. There was an entrepreneurial spirit in Britain, with people looking to invest and make money. Government support. The British government supported industry and did not interfere with it. Abundant empire. Britain had a large empire, 40% of the earth in 1850, to which they could sell products like textiles. Transportation. The British already had a river system, and they built canals and railroads to link the country to the ocean. One big technological breakthrough was the steam engine railroad, such as George Stephenson's rocket, which could haul goods from Liverpool to Manchester. According to the source material, by solving the food problem before other nations, Britain was set up for success. Britain was the first to figure out how to run a government, and that sets it up for success. Industrialization and urbanization problems. Industrialization and urbanization brought about several problems, especially in the early stages. Problems associated with working in factories and living in industrialized cities. Unsanitary conditions. Awful drinking water that could make people sick. Air pollution. Moral decline, with people exposed to corruption. Low wages, especially for children. Monotonous work. Factory owners needed workers to be nearly robotic, doing the same movement thousands of times a day. Shorter lifespans. In Liverpool, the average life expectancy at birth shrank to 25 years due to bad air, dangerous conditions, crowding, and lack of calories. Overwhelmed cities that lacked infrastructure to deal with the population. Poor sanitation and waste disposal, leading to disease. For example, people would dump night soil, human waste, into the river, which was then used as a source of drinking water. Lack of government protection for workers. Abuse, including physical and sexual abuse, was common and unregulated. Loss of control over daily routine, as work schedules were dictated by the factory. Exposure to diseases such as diphtheria and cholera. A cartoon depicts a child playing on a pile of poop, which symbolizes the dirty conditions of the city. Overwork and lack of calories leading to poor health. Industrial waste being dumped into rivers. Despite these problems, people still moved to the cities because factory jobs paid more than farm work or domestic service. Also, people in cities were more likely to marry for love because families were not around to enforce social rules. Utopian socialism versus Marxist socialism. Utopian socialism and Marxist socialism are two distinct approaches to socialism, differing in their origins, methods, and goals. Utopian socialism. Origin. Utopian socialists were the earliest socialists who believed that industrialization could improve life. Methods. Utopians believed that socialism would happen from above, with wealthy individuals recognizing the suffering of the poor and voluntarily sharing their wealth. Utopian socialists favored a peaceful and polite approach. Key figures. Robert Owen is a key example of a utopian socialist. Owen, a textile mill owner, created a mill in Scotland with good conditions and wages for workers, building houses, schools and hospitals for them. Revolution. In the Owen world, change stirs from the top down. The revolution is not violent. The capitalist system is allowed to hold its shape, with the rich people staying rich while dispensing wealth. Radical or conservative. Utopian socialism is more conservative. Workers' benefits. Better schools, houses, hospitals and working environments. Has it been tried? Yes, it gave it a rap but didn't work. View on charity. Utopian socialism sounds like charity. Critiques. Karl Marx would say that utopian socialism relies on rich people behaving against their nature, which is unrealistic. Marxist socialism, communism. Origin. Marxist socialism, or communism, is rooted in the theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Methods. Marx and Engels believed in a worker overthrow of society through violent revolution. This would involve frustrated, angry workers who, recognizing their numerical advantage, would eliminate the middle classes. Marxist socialists change stirs from the bottom up. Key figures. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels are the key figures behind Marxist socialism. Class struggle. Marx thought that one's economic class explained them. Further, Marx viewed history as a series of clashes between economic classes. Revolution. The key moment is the overthrow of the bourgeoisie, middle class, by the proletariat, working class, which is absolutely violent. Radical or conservative. Marxist socialism is radical. Workers' benefits. Everything is shared. Has it been tried? Not in the Marxist form. Revolutions that claim to have gotten to the point of socialism never get past the dictatorship moment. Critiques. It would take about 7 billion people around the world having a class-conscious moment in which they all believe that it's in their best interest to overthrow the society. Economic change. Intense capitalism is needed to make competition that much more fierce, and that's what Marx needs. Crimean War. Why, who, winners, effects. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, was a major turning point in 19th-century European politics. Here's a breakdown of the war, based on the provided sources. Why? The primary cause of the Crimean War was Russian expansionism. Russia sought to expand its influence into the Mediterranean and build a stronger navy. It was looking to take advantage of the weakening Ottoman Empire to dominate the Black Sea and gain access to shipping. Who? The war pitted Great Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire against Russia. Hollow bullet. Britain and France were allied due to the fact they shared the goal of preventing Russian expansion, not because they liked each other. They feared Russia becoming a naval power and challenging their dominance. Hollow bullet. Austria did not support Russia, despite having been allies for the previous half-century, because Austria also wanted land from the Ottoman Empire. Winners. Great Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire won the war. Although they won, the war was gruesome and bloody. Effects. The Crimean War had several significant consequences. Hollow bullet. Britain retreated into a period of splendid isolation. They focused on their empire and largely withdrew from continental European politics. Hollow bullet. Russia went home to reform. Defeat on their own soil forced them to modernize and address internal weaknesses. Tsar Alexander II initiated reforms, including freeing the serfs in 1861. He created local councils to give people a voice. Hollow bullet. The alliance between Austria and Russia ended, leaving Austria vulnerable. Hollow bullet. The war set the stage for Italian and German unification. The destruction of the Russia-Austria friendship allowed countries to attack them. Hollow bullet. The war led to the concept of battlefield nursing, with Florence Nightingale pioneering new methods of caring for soldiers. Hollow bullet. The war was the first to be covered by journalists in a live sense, because of the use of telegraphs. The death tolls shocked people. Cavour steps to Italian unification. Based on the provided sources, here are the steps Cavour took toward the unification of Italy. Realpolitik and alliances. Cavour, like Bismarck, operated with a sense of realpolitik, forming alliances as needed for the benefit of Piedmont Sardinia. Cavour's goal was to build together a coalition of states in Italy that would join with him to create this new Italian state. The alliances that build Italian unification are temporary alliances, not permanent ones. War with Austria. Cavour instigated a war against Austria to gain territory for Piedmont Sardinia. With the help of the French, Piedmont Sardinia fought Austria. Austria lost land to France. Piedmont Sardinia. Dealing with Garibaldi. When Garibaldi, a radical and romantic figure, threatened to create a romantic republic in Italy by attacking the Papal States, Cavour had to intervene to calm him down and prevent him from undermining the unification process. Unification outcome. Ultimately, Cavour was able to create a new Italian state as a constitutional monarchy. In 1861, Italy united as a constitutional monarchy. Bismarck Wars to German unification. Otto von Bismarck, the leader of Prussia, unified the German states into a single German country through strategic wars. Here are the wars Bismarck initiated to unify Germany, with information drawn from the sources. Realpolitik. Bismarck's approach was rooted in Realpolitik, a political philosophy in which decisions are based on practical considerations rather than ideology or morality. Politics should be based in reality, that one should see the weaknesses of places and take advantage of them, and there should be no permanent ideas of good or evil or right or wrong. He manipulated situations and created animosity with clinical, calculated actions to set up the unification of Germany. Blood and iron. Bismarck's view was that change happens not through speeches or popular will but through blood and iron. The Danish War, 1864. Prussia and Austria joined together to fight Denmark, which controlled two territories with German-speaking populations. Bismarck's primary goal in this war was to create an atmosphere of friendship with Austria that he could later disrupt. After defeating Denmark, Austria and Prussia jointly controlled the conquered territories. Bismarck then convinced the Austrians to control the more northern of the two states, while Prussia controlled the southern state. In order to get to their territory, Austria had to go through the Prussian soil. Austro-Prussian War, 1866. Bismarck strategically isolated Austria by securing the neutrality of France, Russia, Britain, and Italy. He then provoked Austria by closing off access to Austrian territory, compelling Austria to initiate war, making it appear as the aggressor. Prussia quickly defeated Austria and seized territory from it, but did not take all of Austria's land. Bismarck chose not to inflict too much damage in order to avoid future animosity. Franco-Prussian War, 1870–1871, Bismarck isolated France, securing the neutrality of other powers. Unlike the lenient peace with Austria, Bismarck imposed a harsh peace treaty on France, demanding financial reparations and occupying French territory. The celebration party of the new German country was not in Germany but at Versailles in France. Bismarck's success in unifying Germany through war and realpolitik was a defining example of the brutal politics of the late 19th century. His actions also created lasting animosity, particularly with France, which had far-reaching consequences. In 1871, Germany united.